I was in federal prison for a little more than 3 months, and I went from pompous and arrogant to humble and ashamed, embarrassed really quickly. I had been in prison for a few months. I was in my business partner Michael Santos's cubicle, and I was trying to show off about the excellent shape that I was getting into in prison. Now, it's good to get in shape in prison to come home healthier and stronger, but I had adjusted to prison through nothing but really exercise and some reading with no real recollection of what I was reading. It was just to pass the time. So one day I'm in his cubicle showing off about the shape I'm getting into. My six pack is coming back. And he asked me, on a scale of 1 to 10, how well am I preparing for the inevitable obstacles that await someone like me, a convicted felon, lost my licenses, owe $500,000 in restitution, no resources left? Like, what's in store for you when you come home? And also, how much are people going to pay you to do those pull-ups or run 10 miles? And it was an embarrassing experience, because when I went back to my cubicle and sat down, it hit me, wow, I've been here for several months and I've wasted this experience. So the reason I put up this thumbnail, 18 months or a life sentence, I was making decisions early on that would ensure that my sentence wasn't just 18 months that Judge Stephen Wilson gave me, but rather it was amounting to a life sentence, which is the case for so many people who serve a short sentence in a minimum security camp and come home to more problems than they ever could have imagined. So I'm glad I got it together after 3 months. I'm thankful to have found a mentor and guide in Michael Santos to hold me accountable, to encourage me to look inward. And to the extent that our team can be that guide for you, we want to, but it requires work. There's no a happy talk. It requires creating a new record over a sustained period of time. And that began to happen for me in prison. This video today is going to cover 10 things I learned on the inside that helped ensure my sentence was only that 18 months and not a day longer. If anything, these lessons I learned help ensure this experience, as crazy as it may sound, was a wonderful thing that happened in my life, a transformative thing. I'm not insane. I'm not glad I went to prison, though I'm glad I learned these lessons. And if you're going through crisis, keep going. Take some of these lessons to heart, implement them immediately. And if you do that, this experience will not last one day longer than it needs to. So here's 10 quick things, and I hope they help you. And welcome to our community. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And if you're new to our community, please like and subscribe. Well, first lesson that helped me: talk less and do more. Now, here I am on YouTube. I probably talk too much. I talk too fast. I'm trying to scale it back a little bit. Talk less and do more. It is not uncommon when someone goes to prison, kind of like me. You want to make friends, show off to a degree the life you had, the money you made, the deals you did, talk about what life will be like on the other side. Perhaps some of the problems that happen to the felon class aren't really going to happen to you. So I was somewhat delusional in sharing these stories. And there are people who will listen and buy into it who don't care. And there's very few truth tellers I found in prison, in my case, other than Michael Santos. So I would encourage you, once you get there, talk less and begin to do more, study more. Get there, study your environment. Who's adjusting well and why? Who's adjusting poorly and why? How do they spend their days? Be careful about the friendships that you form, because you may get there, begin to talk, form a friendship, and then realize you're associating with someone who has adjusted poorly, who complains, who speaks to staff. So a big lesson I learned early, because I formed some of these wrong friendships: talk less, begin to do more. Write, document it, read. What are you learning? Share that work with stakeholders. Talk less and do more. A second lesson I learned, and it didn't really hit me till I began documenting my journey through my blog and release plan: eventually you're going to find some value in this struggle. And it sounds very cliche, and I'm not Anthony Robbins here, though I will tell you, if you are open to finding the value, open to finding value in the struggle, it will help you get through it. And it will help ensure this experience isn't any longer than it needs to be. I'm going to continue to refer to that in this video. And as long as I'm doing YouTube videos or working with a team, helping people get through crisis, value for me was finding a way to finally give back and contribute, to look inward, to understand how I got here, and to begin to provide a glimpse into this foreign world of imprisonment. For a guy like me who was 33 going to prison, didn't know anyone that had been to prison other than what I'd seen on television, and I didn't understand how productive prison could be. And had I not met Michael and got that tutelage from him, it would have been a wasted experience. We would not have formed a company that has helped so many people. So find somehow, some way, meaning through the struggle. If that's documenting the journey, if that's learning from those who have gone through this experience, learning how you respond to crisis, forcing yourself to do things on days that you don't want to, like eating healthier, exercising, writing, developing a new skill set, working your way into a new career, something that's totally new. If you find some meaning through this struggle, dare I say, you'll turn out to be a net positive in your life. Third lesson I learned in prison: there are going to be people that continue to hurt you and want to see you struggle and really endure fallout and pain. Now, these may include people who you think have your own best interest. I saw people in prison who were trying to be productive, but had formed into these cliques and groups, and people uh, encourage them not to continue to work, encourage them not to go down that path. I think they were jealous. They didn't want someone to go on their own and be productive. And people who you think might want to help you in prison could actually turn out to hurt, which is why, coming back to number one, talk less and do more. Be careful about the friendships that you form. People not just in prison might want to hurt you. It's people, who are home, who are angry that you went to prison, who are happy that you went to prison, who are going to dismiss efforts that you might make both in prison and after you're released. There will be people who take pleasure in your pain, and you've got to embrace and understand that and be very cautious about, again, the relationships that you form, because if you are susceptible or vulnerable or easily influenced or a people pleaser who cannot say no, you can expect to potentially get run over on the inside and not make the most of the experience. Number four, and I wrote these out quickly just before I decided to do this live video. Number four, if you focus on the problems, you're only going to find more problems. It's not hard to obsess about all that you've lost in prison: reputation, money, licenses, freedom, everything that accompanies a white-collar crime conviction. I'm not naive. I've endured it. It's brutal, and most people have had it worse than me, going in with young children and families. It is awful, but if you only fixate on all of these problems, as I said, you are only going to find more. Somehow you've got to create opportunities. You've got to find a way to find meaning through this struggle. Begin to create a new plan and process that proves worthy of the love and support of your family. The problem with prison is misery loves company. And if you find dudes in the chow hall that are going to let you articulate all day, all night about the problems, you have to reciprocate. That's what we teach our children. Your friend invited you to their home. We're going to invite them over next week. You need to reciprocate and listen. And if you associate with people like that, I can assure you, you are never going to find meaning through this experience. Number five, you can truly learn from anyone in federal prison. I want you to be open to learning from people who have had measurably different experiences than you, who might not have your education or skill set or income or family, people who, as the cliche holds, grew up on the wrong side of the tracks, who have been in and out of prison their entire life. Learn from how, there are so many things you can learn from them. There was someone with whom I worked in the kitchen. He had a big tattoo on his neck called Too Blessed to Be Stressed. And he was always so upbeat, despite having many more years to serve and many years behind him and not having advantages that I took for granted. And I'd say, like, how are you so upbeat, man? Like, how are you so happy? And he's like, I'm grateful to be alive. I'm grateful that my family can send me a little bit of money every month. I'm doing the best I can here. What's the upside in complaining? What's the upside in complaining all day? I don't want that for my life. You can learn from anyone in prison if you form the right friendships. And it doesn't just have to be a white collar guy. It can be anyone from any background. There are things that you can learn from them. And I learned so much just by listening, walking to the chow hall. I learned so much by listening to their plans upon their release. And lessons from prison, I articulate that a relationship I had with my friend Andrew Alchek softened, or the relationship was damaged a bit, because I heard him make fun of someone named Roman, who had secured a job at a fast food restaurant upon his release. And Roman spoke with such pride about this job that he had lined up. And it was wonderful for him to line up a job before you've been released from prison is really admirable. And eventually I spoke with him and asked him, well, how did you do it? How did you cultivate relationships? How did you line up the job? I learned from him. Instead, Andrew said, I would rather stay in prison than go work at a fast food restaurant. You can learn from absolutely anyone. Number six, something I learned in prison: try new things, man. Like, just have fun with the experience. If you lay low and avoid problems and work your way into your routine, try new things. For me, that was writing a blog, running really long distances, reading literature I had never read before and writing about it. Like, try new things. The worst you can do is embarrass yourself and fail, but you haven't really embarrassed yourself or failed, because at least you tried. The day before the Super Bowl in 2009, Michael invited me to speak to his reentry class behind the garage in the warehouse in front of 100 guys. And I was nervous. I didn't sleep well the night before. I'm going to speak to people in prison who have been here much longer than me. And like, they're going to listen to me speak. And I was nervous. I didn't know how well it would go, well, they respect me. I have a long sentence. I don't want to be professed to be an expert on prison. I'm going to talk about how good people can make bad decisions and end up in prison. I was nervous and I was scared, and Michael was watching me. Everyone was watching me. And I can't tell you that it went well, but I was so proud of myself for having tried. And speaking there and getting some semblance of positive feedback put me on a path or position to continue to speak upon my release, which is what I began to do in the halfway house. Try new things, embarrass yourself. Done is better than perfect. Just start. Number 7, focus on what remains. When I went to prison, I obsessed over all I lost. And then you get there and you find a sense of perspective and you begin to appreciate all that remains. You might have lost your licenses or your career. Reputation is in the toilet. You're starting over, but there are still so many blessings that exist in your life. So if you focus on problems, more problems are going to come. For me, I focused on my youth, the supportive family that I had. I still had some resources. I had a mentor. I was finally beginning to take his advice several months into my prison term. So even now, focus on what remains in your life. Appreciate it, prove worthy of it, because while people are going to seek to hurt you and maybe take advantage of you and find pleasure in your pain, there are those who are remaining in your life. Prove worthy of that love and support. Focus on what remains. Just a few more here. I'm a big proponent of introspection. If you read Lessons from Prison, you can still get for free at White Collar Advice. The first chapter discusses the value of introspection and looking inward and understanding how and why I ended up in federal prison. But at some point, there can be too much introspection, too much looking backward, because it can depress you. So you want to identify how you got here, but it's very easy to stand for count in prison and do nothing but ruminate or obsess over how I ended up serving 18 months in a minimum security camp, the privileges I had, the opportunities that I wasted, the bad decisions I made while working as a broker, doubling down on those bad choices after I learned that I was the target of an investigation. If you obsess too much about the past, you will never be able to move forward. At some point, you have to recognize if you pled guilty, you made bad decisions. You got to own them. You have to acknowledge them, create a clear path to ensure they never happen again. To do that, you've got to learn how you got there. But at some point, you just got to move forward, man. Like, it happened. People make bad decisions. You learn from it. You're going to go. Do not spend too much time in the past. 2 more here. Number 9. It's really never too late. This sounds very sort of motivational. It's really never too late to find your purpose in life. I didn't love being a stockbroker. I loved making a lot of money, but I can't tell you that I had a lot of passion trading stocks. But after I began writing that blog in prison and getting letters from people who said they were finding value in it, I'm like, man, I feel purposeful here. And the funny thing is, I didn't make any money for a while, more than a year and a half after I began writing, but I had found this purpose to give back and contribute. Not in a boilerplate way, how to shop in the commissary and nonsense that people still try to charge money for, but beginning to offer strategies of how you can get through this successfully with dignity and a plan. If you've lost everything as I had, here's the plan to do better and overcome and create a daily measurable strategy that you can implement and share with stakeholders. So you can find your purpose like anywhere. Many of you are familiar with Dr. Nate Schott, a dentist who they wanted 51 months. He got 33, home in 10 months. He owned myriad dental practices in Tennessee, was very, very successful. And now Nate is building a very successful career training dentists on compliance and marketing, how to ensure you don't get loose and lazy with the books. And I spent a time with him 2 weeks ago when he was in town, and he's like, this is the purpose of my life, to help other dentists and make sure they never end up here. Like, prison was great for me. I found my meaning, and I thought my meaning was to be a dentist. Now it's to help not patients with their teeth, but to help hundreds of dentists understand how one decision can derail your practice, lead you to prison, lawsuits, laying off employees, hurting your family. You can find your purpose anywhere, including through this experience. And last but not least, number 10. I'm telling you, man, slow and steady wins the race. It is very hard for some people to start because they're overwhelmed with, I got to get my reputation back. I want to get in better shape. I got to make money. I got to build a new career. All of these things, it's so overwhelming, you might not know when to start. For me, the idea, and that's why prison was so beneficial, it was so helpful, because I knew I had a release date. I knew nothing I could do because the First Step Act didn't pass when I was in prison. I wasn't earning earn time credits. I knew my date was coming. So I'm like, it's coming. I'm here today, slow and steady. What could I do every single day? If I know if I write a blog today, that's 500 words. I know in 30 days, I have 15,000 words. I know in 3 months, I have 45,000 words. That's akin to, that is a book. Boom, that is an asset. Okay. I know I need to exercise today, slow and steady, do a little bit today. I know I need to improve my vocabulary, and every vocabulary word I read and learn, I'm going to insert into a blog. I began to use those words. I still use them today. Slow and steady wins the race. Do not feel so overwhelmed with what you have to accomplish or do in the weeks, months, and years ahead, because if you do, you will never start. For that reason, what's the next right thing you can do? If the next day feels too overwhelming, the next right thing in the next week feels too overwhelming, what's the next thing you can do in the next 15 minutes, 10 minutes? By embracing the slow and steady approach, I was able to get so much done because you chalk up small wins along the way. A blog, a blog, a book, a blog. That became a book. 3 miles, 5 miles, 10 miles. Wow, I ran 200 miles this month. Slow and steady wins the race. Perhaps the next right thing for you to do is join our weekly webinar. Here's my sales pitch here, people. Join our weekly webinar every Monday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. There's no selling. There's no pitching. Register at White Collar Advice. It's free. We just teach and we answer questions and we share what we're learning. We're a community. And I'm so grateful and thankful that all of you are in our community at White Collar Advice. There you have it. 10 lessons I learned in federal prison. By learning them, I ensured my 18 months, my measly 18 months in the minimum security camp did not amount to a life sentence. I don't want it to be a life sentence for any of you, which is why I filmed this video. Get to work, take action. Without action and working, these videos are absolutely useless. Thank you. Bye-bye. I think some stitches flew out. Thank you. Bye-bye.